As we welcome you back to Baltimore, we remind you today's game is being broadcast in Spanish where available using the SAP button on your television. The Baltimore Ravens have won the toss and they will defer, which means Denver gets their hands on the football first on a cloudy day, temperatures in the low 50s, and they say it may rain a bit later on today. The Baltimore Ravens are going to let their defense speak first on the field, and it's, as you mentioned, Dan, it's a decimated defense.
I can't recall doing a game in recent memory where I've seen a defense that is as banged up as are the Ravens, with so many starters missing this game. They were hopeful that Ray Lewis was going to be able to come back and play today. He desperately wanted to, but the doctors said no. At least for another week, he's just going to have to be an emotional leader in street clothes on the sideline.
Trendon Holiday, you saw him deep for the Denver Broncos. He has returned to kick 105 yards for a touchdown earlier this season at Cincinnati. Denver, 10-3. Baltimore, 9-4, and we're underway. Holiday will not run this one out, and so the Broncos will start from their own 20-yard line. Peyton Manning is in every conversation. MVP, comeback player of the year. He has the Broncos at 10-3, 30 touchdown passes, on the verge of a 12th season throwing for 4,000 yards. So we will see just how stout that Baltimore defense can be. Manning to throw. Deep. Incomplete. Demaryius Thomas surrounded by 3 defenders on the Denver offensive line. Right guard Chris Cooper's ankle injury sidelines him again. Manny Ramirez starts for him. The backs and the receivers, and Demaryius Thomas is Manning's favorite receiver. 74 catches, going on 1,200 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. On 2nd and 10, the give is to Moreno, and Moreno looking to get outside and is going to lose yardage. Kerry Williams coming up from his cornerback position to make the stop.
Well, trying to break contain on the left, that means somebody from the Ravens has to set the edge. And you can see right there, Ryan Clady just can't get the block on, of all people, a corner. Corey Graham came up and set the edge. You don't expect a corner to do it quite that effectively against an offensive tackle. Well done, Corey Graham.
3rd and 11.
Terrell Suggs walked up and almost touched face mask with Manning.
Manning. And out across the 20 to the 25 is Moreno, but not nearly enough for the first down.
And boy, did John Harbaugh get exactly what he wanted, sending a wounded defense out on the field, and on their first series of the day, they force a 3 and out. Man, you just couldn't dream of a better beginning for Harbaugh and the Ravens.
Jacoby Jones back for the punt. He's returned 163 yards earlier this season for a touchdown. Kicking it away is Britton Colquitt. And Jones looking to return this one from the 35 out to the 40. Dip to the outside, still on his feet, and a return to the 45-yard line. So Joe Flacco goes to work for the first time in his NFL career under an offensive coordinator other than Cam Cameron. Jim Caldwell in charge today. Flacco with 18 touchdown passes and 9 interceptions, and there is Coach Caldwell.
He's going to call the plays. They'll be relayed down to Jim Hostler, the wide receiver coach, who will actually be speaking to Flacco. NFL rules prohibit a coach in the press box from having a direct line to the quarterback on the field.
Flacco to throw. Out of the backfield is Vontae Leach. And Leach across midfield into Denver territory, brought down by Champ Bailey. Baltimore is minus right guard Marshall Yanda with an ankle injury. 13-year veteran Bobby Williams steps in. And running back Ray Rice, part of the week-long discussion here in Baltimore, the feeling is he hasn't been getting enough touches. We'll count them as the day goes on.
Well, when he is your best offensive player, you want him to play the largest role. Makes sense.
His first of the day. And he dances to about the 46-yard line. Meanwhile, Baltimore on defense. Or Denver, excuse me. It's a 4-3, and there's Elvis Dumerville. 8 sacks, but none since the 18th of November. The Broncos sackmaster, Von Miller, 16 sacks on the year, 10 of them, and 5 forced fumbles in his last 6 games. And the rock on the corner in the secondary, 11-time Pro Bowler, Champ Bailey, with 52 career interceptions.
But the big play on first down to Leach has given them a manageable second and third down.
On 3rd and 1, it is Flacco keeping.
Did he drop the ball?
Loose football, and a Bronco has it, and it goes over to Denver. Boy, fumbles have been a problem for Joe Flacco. Raheem Moore recovers.
Well, Flacco had 8 coming into the game. That would be number 9. And after converting a first down, Justin Bannon, number 97, he's got his hands on the football. When does it come out? There it goes.
12:09 to play in the first quarter, and Denver with the football again. Ronnie Hillman is in the backfield. Manning from the shotgun and throws, and that's complete across midfield to Eric Decker. Let's go back to that Flacco fumble.
Yeah, we've got a good look at it from behind. Here's Joe Flacco right here, but you're going to be able to see, watch right now. The ball's out, and he is not even close to having a knee down on the field. Like all turnovers, that was reviewed and immediately confirmed. The officials were right on it.
Fumbled twice at Washington last week. It's his 9th fumble of the season. He's lost 4. This is Hillman. Around the outside and out of bounds, just shy of the Baltimore 40-yard line.
Well, a really good start to the game. We'll see if it results in points, but a really good start to the game negated by that fumble. The Ravens defense got a 3 and out. They had excellent field position. Joe Flacco had moved the football far enough to pick up the first down, and the turnover ensued.
First down, Denver at the Baltimore 42. They fake to Hillman, throwing a sideline, and that is complete to Eric Decker, who came back for it and is short of a first down inside the 35.
And Eric Decker is he's not the least bit happy that Kerry Williams shoved him at the end of this. Talk about coming back to the football. And it's a tough job for the official on the sideline there to spot the ball.
On 2nd and 1, Hillman has the first down.
You know, Greg, when you look at this Denver defense, the Ravens defense, you can't overestimate how banged up these guys are. 4 of their 5 leading tacklers are not playing today. I can never recall having seen that before, where that much talent is unavailable to a team on game day. 4 of their 5 leading tacklers, and that's not even counting with Darius Webb, their best corner, who they lost in the 6th game of the year. They are banged up, to say the least.
Manning with time, throwing to the end zone. Has a man open and overthrew Demaryius Thomas. And Peyton knows he just missed him.
Yes, he did. Because Chris Johnson is a defender on the coverage, and Thomas has a good 3 or 4 feet on him. And Peyton just puts a little too much air under the football. You don't get that many good looks at it like that. And he knows darn well that was one he would love to try again.
Sean Moreno is back into the backfield on 2nd and 10. And Manning throwing to this side of the field and off the fingertips of Demaryius Thomas. It'll be 3rd and 10.
Well, that look on Manning's face is, hey, you got to catch that. The look we saw a minute ago was frustration because he overthrew it, but he expects Demaryius Thomas, a big target at 6'3". When you got your hands on it, you're supposed to catch it.
3rd and 10, and here comes the Baltimore crowd again. throwing to the sideline and has his man at the 15-yard line. Brandon Stokely with the catch. They're going to mark it out of bounds at about the 17.
You could see Ed Reed was making an argument that Stokely was either juggling the ball or he didn't get both feet down. He's got pretty solid possession. And there's the elbow down inbounds.
And he dragged the right foot just for good measure. And the penalty marker is thrown. Moreno still on his feet. Fights just inside the 15 to the 10.
Well, Peyton Manning wasted no time getting up to the line with a quick snap. But he didn't have to worry about that. That was a good catch by Brandon Stokely.
Pete Morelli is our referee today. It's possible the Broncos weren't set in their haste to get that playoff.
Well, when you're going to play on the offense with Peyton Manning, you better be ready to go quickly, or he'll run the whole play clock. You've got to be ready for anything.
There's no challenge on the play. Baltimore did not put the challenge flag down. The ball was snapped prior to the ball being the challenge flag coming out. However, illegal motion, number 81, offense, 5-yard penalty, remains first down.
So that will back the Broncos up to the 22.
Well, I think it worked out well for the Ravens because they weren't going to win. They weren't going to win that challenge. That was a good catch by Brandon Stokely.
Baltimore boasts the best red zone defense in the National Football League, allowing touchdowns 40% of the time.
Well, the Ravens saved the timeout and penalized Denver 5 yards.
Manning throwing to the outside, and there is Joel Creasy, the tight end, wrestled out of bounds just inside the 15 by Brendan Ayanbadejo. The Baltimore Ravens put 4 linebackers onto the field, and they only have 2 in reserve today.
Well, keep in mind that Jameel McClain isn't playing. He hurt his neck last week. They were hoping Donnell Ellerbe was going to be able to come back this week. He's missed the last 2, make it 3. And then they were hoping, beyond hope, that Ray Lewis could play. And this is a group, this is a defense stuck together with duct tape.
On 2nd and 7, Manning quick pass to Thomas. And Thomas looking for running room and doesn't find any. Good play coming up from the secondary by Chris Johnson.
And you know, I haven't even mentioned the fact Bernard Pollard's not playing today. He re-injured that rib that's been bothering him all season long. But this is an awful lot of production. Those 4 people are 4 of their 5 leading tacklers, and they're all spectators today.
3rd and 7 for Manning and the Broncos. Manning pulls it down and then throws just inside the 10 to Demaryius Thomas, but that is not going to be enough for a first down. Last week, the Broncos fell short in the red zone 4 times and had to settle for field goals, and Peyton Manning acknowledged, talking to us yesterday, they can't continue to do that, but they have to do it here.
Well, and you're also talking about the best red zone defense in the National Football League when you're talking about the Ravens. So they just did to the Broncos what they've been doing to people all season long. You move it in the middle of the field, but more often than not, they stall inside the 20.
Matt Prater, from 27 yards out, gives Denver the first lead of the day. 3-0 Broncos. Back in Baltimore, 7:13 to play here in the first quarter. Denver recovers the Flacco fumble and goes 44 yards in 11 plays. Prater with the 27-yard field goal and a 3-0 lead. We talked to Joe Flacco about those fumbles, and his view is, hey, that's going to happen if you play the position, and John Harbaugh's view is, hey, it shouldn't happen that often.
He said, the football belongs to you. Respect it, take care of it.
Jacoby Jones will run this one out from deep in his end zone. Right up the middle and out across the 30. And we have a penalty marker down at about the 11-yard line.
Still, Jacoby Jones should return every kickoff. I don't care if it's 8-9 yards deep in the end zone. When you've got that kind of talent and explosiveness, I'd let him go every single time.
See if this is a block.
During return, illegal block in the back. number 15 of the receiving team. Happens to the goal, first down, timeout.
That penalty is on Laquan Williams, and it'll back the Ravens up. We'll take a timeout. So a terrific 41-yard return by Jacoby Jones, wiped out because of the blocking in the back penalty, and the Ravens start from their own 6. Rice, his second carry of the day.
Well, Greg was talking about Joe Flacco's fumbles. Week 13 in Pittsburgh. James Harrison comes in from behind, strips the ball, and then last week in Washington, Rob Jackson comes in from behind, and then today on a quarterback sneak where he picked up the first down yardage, out the ball comes, and it resulted in 3 points for Denver.
Flacco to throw. Looking, and out of his own end zone, and incomplete, and very close to a safety. Flacco at the goal line, intended for Rice over the middle.
Well, if you want to say anything about Joe Flacco, he isn't afraid to stand in the pocket. And look how close Elvis Dumervil comes to getting him. This time Dumervil coming and working on Osemele, the right tackle. And again, Joe was about a half a second from having that ball knocked out of his hand before he was able to throw it.
3rd and 8. Flacco going this side and overthrows Tandon Doss on the near sideline. And so now Sam Cook will be punting out of his own end zone.
And Joe Flacco goes to the ground again after he releases the ball. And again, it's just a wide open Robert Ayers who's never even touched. And the ball just sails on Flacco. Doss was open. He was in front of Tony Carter. He had run a route. He was there a little lower, would have moved the chains.
Trindon Holiday back at his own 40-yard line. And fields this one on the run and steps out of bounds just short of midfield. 6 minutes, 20 seconds remaining to be played in the first quarter. 3-0 Denver. Once again, Manning. And the Denver offense from their own 48-yard line. Again, excellent field position. This is Moreno. And Moreno gets to the outside, gets running room, and is cut down at the 47-yard line by James Ahedibo, who is only in the lineup, replacing an injured Bernard Pollard.
Well, and he looked like Bernard Pollard on that hit. That's how you want a safety to come up. Take a look at that. Ahedibo right in the thigh, drives right through it. Textbook.
Right back at it. Moreno straight ahead. To about the 44, maybe the 43, and about a yard short of a first down. Arthur Jones making the stop for the Ravens. Ray Lewis looking on.
He really wanted to play, and he lobbied all week. But he's 8 weeks into basically a 12-week injury. The doctors would like to see it heal for at least 12 weeks, and he's just 8 weeks into it.
And John Harbaugh has the postseason in mind for Ray Lewis and keeping him off the field. 3rd and 1. From the shotgun. Manning throwing outside, and miscommunication there between Manning and his tight end Joel Dreesen.
Well, both have to read the coverage the same way, and Joel Dreesen is supposed to break to the outside right behind Noshawn Moreno, and he goes upfield, and there will be a lecture to follow from number 18.
Tandon Doss is deep for the punt this time for the Ravens, back at his own 10-yard line. Colquitt lofts this one up, and fair catch is called for and made by Doss at his own 14-yard line. 5:09 to play in the first quarter. Joe Flacco back on offense after this. Look at one of the more beautiful stadiums in the National Football League from on high here in Baltimore. Bernard Pierce in the backfield, and he gets the pitch to try the left side, shakes a tackler, and makes it across the 10. And is forced out of bounds. And the aerial coverage of today's game is provided by MetLife. That was the 7th snap of the day for Baltimore compared to Denver's 16. And the theme we heard all day on Friday talking to the Ravens was more snaps, more time of possession on offense.
Well, let's start with baby steps. They need a first down. They don't have a first down yet in this game. They need to relieve some of the pressure for their defense. They're playing well.
Pierce again, nowhere to go. That play is stuffed at the 14-yard line. Derek Wolfe, the second-round draft pick out of Cincinnati, the defensive end, helping to make the play.
Well, just zone blocking up front, and it's a one-cut offense, and you can see the one cut by Pierce. His foot gives out right there. He slips, and he goes down on his own. That's supposed to be a one-cut and rip it upfield, not a one-cut slip and fall.
Flacco throwing. And the diving catch is made on the far side of the field by Dennis Pitta, but it is short of a first down.
Mike Adams there with the coverage, and when you first saw that, you're going, how is it possible that Pitta was able to catch that ball, and how was Flacco able to deliver that accurate of a throw, being flushed out of the pocket?
What he's able to do is give his punter Sam Cook a little more breathing room.
Yeah, but let's be realistic, Greg. Again, they failed to even generate a first down.
So Trindon Holiday inside his own 25. Looking for some distance on this one. Holiday on the run and follows it out of bounds at about the 31-yard line. Tonight on Survivor, 4 castaways remain. After 2 tribal councils and 2 incredible hours, only one will be the sole survivor. Don't miss the season finale and live reunion show tonight only CBS.
Well, you got to wonder when Peyton Manning is going to start working the intermediate part of the field, taking advantage of the fact that Josh Bynes is making his first start of the season at inside linebacker. Ian Badejo is having to play in the middle. McClellan, who normally plays outside, he's seeing time in the middle.
Terrell Suggs in on Manning, popped the ball in the air, it's incomplete. Suggs along with Paul Kruger were right in on Peyton Manning.
And I think, did he hurt his arm again? He's clutching his arm as he comes off the field. There's Suggs at the top. He gets inside of Ryan Clady, but Paul Kruger in there. Kruger's coming in from the right, and it's actually Kruger who slaps Peyton Manning's arm. That almost a big play for Baltimore.
2nd and 10. Manning under pressure again, incomplete. Let's check into New York once again. First time today, JB.
Houston looking to punch the South, Coach.
Yeah, coming off an embarrassing loss to New England. Here you see Andre Johnson, 3 yards out there, up 10-0 on Indy.
All right, let's take it back to Greg Gumbel and Dan Deardorff.
JB, Coach, thank you. 3:16 to play here in the first quarter. Manning with a 3rd and 10.
Courtney Upshaw had the pressure last time.
Suggs, a spectator on the sideline. Manning going down at the 25-yard line. And that was Pernell McPhee.
Well, what can you say about this front for the Baltimore Ravens and the pressure? There's McPhee. He just jams right guard Manny Ramirez. He runs Ramirez past Peyton Manning and makes the play. McPhee, who missed some games this year, what a big-time stand by the Ravens defense right there. That was huge and inspirational.
Jacoby Jones at his own 25. Booms it out of there, quick catch called for, and covered at the 32-yard line by Jones. So it'll be Baltimore ball first, back to New York. JB and the coach, guys.
Who's dangerous in the red zone, Coach?
It's Tony Gonzalez, JB. Atlanta trying to clinch a bye right here. They jump over New York up 14-0, still in the first quarter.
And they can clinch that first-round bye with a win and help. Back to Greg and Dan.
How about that grab by Tony Gonzalez?
Yeah, well, nothing new. All right, time to take off the wraps here if you're on the offensive team for the Ravens. Warm-ups are over. The defense is getting it done. Get moving.
Flacco throwing. And that's Devontae Leach out of the backfield, and Leach brought down at the 35-yard line, pickup of a couple. As we come up on 2 minutes to play in the first quarter.
You know, the first one, a fumble by Joe Flacco, but then again, consecutive 3 and outs resulting in punts. The defense just can't be playing any better than they're playing right now. Don't waste it here if you're a Ravens offensive player.
Straight drop for Flacco. Screen set up for Rice, and Rice nowhere to go. His forward progress will be marked at about the 34-yard line. And Von Miller, one of those in on the tackle.
Now, keep in mind, you're not going against the JV when you're playing this Denver defense. You know, they're rated 4th in the league, both in points allowed and yards allowed. This is one active, moving group of good football players.
Once again, Flacco and the offense in a 3rd and long situation. Flacco,
nobody there. Well, he got the blitz. They came with Mike Adams, a safety blitz. Adams comes right up the field, and there's nobody to pick him up. And he just wallops Joe Flacco. Watch right there. There's Adams, number 20. As you can see, he timed it right between the left guard and the left tackle, and Joe Flacco can't do much about it.
Each team has had three and outs.
It's not good when you've run 4 possessions and got 12 plays.
Holiday. Hit hard just as he crossed the 20 and lost the ball out of bounds. Albert McClellan, number 50, with the big hit. Let's go back and listen to how big a hit it was.
Of course, it takes a little courage if you're Trendon Holiday at 5'5", 170 pounds. When a guy like McClellan gets a shot, he's going to take it. Not every day you get to hit a guy that pint size.
So once again, the Raven defense back to work against Peyton Manning. From the 22, Moreno running right up the middle. Leaps a tackler and across the 40 for a first down. He jumped right over Ed Reed.
Well, no Sean Moreno. First of all, great blocking up front and a pretty good hold by right tackle Orlando Franklin. Paul Kruger screaming for a flag. No flag thrown.
Moreno again. To about the 45.
One more look at this hurdle by Noshawn Moreno. And it's not like Ed Reed was down grabbing at his ankles. Ed Reed was remarkably high. I mean, look. That is some display of athleticism by Noshawn Moreno.
Ronnie Hillman replaces Moreno in the backfield, and he gets the play fake. Manning with time, sideline pass, and that is grabbed by Eric Decker. And out of bounds, just short of the 40-yard line of the Ravens. That's a first down.
Well, Decker, another of the very big targets that Peyton Manning has. Going to the guy 6'3", puts it there, move the chains.
End of one. As we get set to start the second quarter, Terrell Suggs, we thought he may have re-injured himself. He's missed the last 5 plays, but he just in the last few moments put his helmet back on, so he may be getting set to come back into action as the handoff goes to Moreno, and Moreno up front. Well, there's a guy who has revived his career, and it took an unfortunate injury to Willis McGahee for it to happen to Noshawn Moreno.
Well, Moreno fumbled the ball in their second game of the year, and his penalty for that was he was inactive for the next 8 games. And this is his last chance.
This time he is wrapped up just inside the 30-yard line. Josh Bynes, number 56, making the stop.
And Moreno got that first chance 4 weeks ago against Kansas City. And Peyton Manning told us before that game, he goes, I don't have a doubt that he's going to play well. His time in the penalty box there, when he was inactive for those 8 games, he said, you can't believe how hard he worked. Never a negative moment. He was a great teammate on the scout team. Not a great place for a first-round draft pick.
6 first downs for Denver, none for Baltimore. Manning, play fake, gonna go deep. Thomas to the end zone and tipped away.
Oh, great job, Kerry Williams. That was perfect timing by Williams. Look at him go up there, and he gets his right hand on the football, not even close to interfering with Demaryius Thomas, a big guy at 6'3", and Kerry Williams, a tall corner at 6'1". Great job of elevating, perfect technique.
12 touchdown passes allowed by the Ravens this season. That's the fewest allowed in the NFL. Moreno straight ahead, inside the 25, and pushing across the 20 to the 19-yard.
Well, that was a heck of a job by the backups, the guys that the play had already passed them for Denver. They got behind Moreno and shoved him forward for another good 3 yards. There's Terrell Suggs back out on the field now.
Number 55 lining up toward the bottom of your screen. Moreno again. To about the 18. And enough for a first down.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Terrell Suggs is in pain every play. But remember this pass rush earlier where Kruger and Suggs got there at the same time. And there you can see he's got a torn biceps tendon in that right arm. And I'm telling you, he's showing a lot of courage out there playing through that.
Jacob Hester makes his first appearance in the backfield for the Broncos. And Hester with the handoff. Peyton Manning said he thought we'd see a little more out of him than we might expect today.
Well, they didn't sign Jacob Hester until the 26th of November. And they didn't sign him until McGahee got hurt. And they needed another running back. And John Fox, very straightforward, and say he has earned the right on the practice field to get some snaps.
Hester in his 5th season out of LSU, 2nd and 8. For the end zone and just short of the goal line, and it's marked a touchdown. Ruled a touchdown for Eric Decker.
Well, let's take a look at it. Does Decker break the plane with the football? He sticks it out and he hits the pylon. He sticks it out and hits the pylon, and that is a touchdown. Hold on, he's out of bounds. You're right, his left foot is out of bounds before he touches the ball to the pylon. And because this was ruled a touchdown, it's automatically being reviewed. There's no coach's challenge here because it was ruled a touchdown. But he was out of bounds before he touched it.
Safe to assume we'll see this ball at the 1 when we come back.
Welcome back to Baltimore, everybody. There's no question that Eric Decker's left foot is out of bounds before he touches the pylon with the ball. The important thing, did he break the plane?
After reviewing the play, the receiver had control of the ball and stepped out of bounds. The ball will be placed at the half-yard line. It is not a touchdown. First down.
Yeah, that's the right call. The only thing that was in dispute, did he maybe break the plane before he touched the pylon? But right there, he is out of bounds. That ball should be spotted at the least the half-yard line, if not about the 3-inch line.
The end result is no touchdown, and this will be the 11th play on what has been a 77-yard drive.
What it was, Greg, was a tremendous catch and gaining possession before he went out of bounds by Eric Decker.
Mitch Unrein, a defensive tackle, has come onto the field on offense. And that's Unrein. And the handoff is for Hester straight ahead. And no call yet, and now a touchdown.
Well, Jacob Hester was about 2 yards into the end zone. Not sure what the delay was on the call. There's not even any part of Jacob Hester that's not in the end zone.
He was just out of sight of the officials.
Now, good surge, great blocking by Copen, Ramirez, Beatles, the group up front.
Matt Prater with the extra point, and it is good. So Jacob Hester with the touchdown and the celebration, and a 10-0 Denver lead. 11:51 to play here in the first half. Denver goes 78 yards in 11 plays, and Jacob Hester gets the touchdown for the 10-0 Broncos lead. And if you're a Ravens fan, you've got to start looking for some offensive production.
Any offensive production would be something.
Jacoby Jones is deep. And he will not get a chance to return this one. This was hauled in at the 10-yard line by Anthony Allen. And Allen out to about the 27-yard line for complete pro football coverage, including everything you need to know from this weekend's matchups all the way through Super Bowl 47. Visit cbssports.com/NFL. The question to be raised, Dan, as the Ravens are back on offense, is just exactly what is it? Can an offensive coordinator, a new offensive coordinator like Jim Caldwell, do in just a week's time?
Well, this isn't play calling. This is execution. This is they're not getting it done at the line of scrimmage. Their running game isn't going anywhere. I mean, that's not... Is that a play that Cam Cameron wouldn't have called? I don't think that's the case. So I don't think you can drop this at Jim Caldwell's doorstep. The fact of the matter is the numbers here are ugly. Denver's run 30 plays. Baltimore's run 13. Denver has 135 yards. Baltimore has 23.
Ray Rice has carried 3 times and caught 1 pass.
Denver has 9 first downs. John Harbaugh's club has 0.
And they're looking at a 2nd and 8 from the 30-yard line. Flacco throwing. Overthrows Anquan Bolden. Let's get to New York. JB, Coach Bill Cowher.
Coach, we're driving for a score.
Down 10-0, 2nd down at the goal. Milwelde Moore fumble right here. Houston defense recovers. Goal line stand. Still Houston up 10-0.
10 minutes left in the first half. Back to Greg and Dan.
Boy, that's a big statement game for the Houston Texans.
You think?
Indianapolis breathing down their necks.
Well, and after what happened to them last week?
3rd and 8 for Flacco. Flacco throwing and off the fingertips of Dennis Pitta. Incomplete.
Well, Pitta had the inside position on that post pattern on safety Mike Adams. And Joe Flacco, one of the few times he wasn't under pressure, throws it a little bit high, but Dennis Pitta gets both hands on it, and normally Pitta makes that catch.
That's a 4th straight 3 and out for the Baltimore offense.
That was not a great throw by Flacco. That a little lower, and Pitta could have handled that a lot easier.
Holiday inside his own 20-yard line for the kick. Shakes a tackle at the 15-yard line. And nothing but Ravens waiting for him on the far side of the field. James Ahedibo making the stop. We have 10:41 to play in the first half. Baltimore coach John Harbaugh told us on Friday we need more plays, more first downs, more time of possession. They're getting none of that so far today. From the 15-yard line. Manning gives to Moreno. Moreno down with 1 tackle and picks up about 2.5 to 3 yards on the play.
Well, that was Terrell Suggs. It was about 3 yards in the Denver backfield, and Moreno had to completely adjust. No mystery as to why that didn't go for much yardage. Nice job by Suggs getting upfield, who got married Friday night.
Throwing outside to Moreno, and right there to meet him was Paul Kruger, number 99.
Well, you know, Kruger has become a really good pass rusher, but that shows that he's got some skills out in space as well, not giving Moreno a chance to get his hips or shoulders turned upfield. That was really nicely done.
So let's see what this Ravens defense has in store on 3rd and 5. What a grab across the 20-yard line made by Demaryius Thomas, but that is going to be short of a first down.
All right, it's a highlight catch, but it's not a highlight first down. Ed Reed's going to be coming in right there, and Ed Reed makes the tackle. Ed Reed actually knocks the bigger guy backwards a little bit. A little skill involved in snatching a football out of the air like that with one hand.
That's now 4 3-and-outs for each team.
Well, you've got to give some kudos to this Ravens defense. The way they're playing so shorthanded.
Britton Colquitt kicking it away to Jacoby Jones. And a fair catch called for and made at the 26-yard line. Hey, tomorrow, spend the holidays with two broke girls. Which one's naughty, which one's nice? Find out on a new Two Broke Girls tomorrow, only CBS. Well, you know, Dan, it was interesting talking to both Peyton Manning and Ed Reed and talking to each one about the other and the mutual respect that they have for each other.
Now you said to Ed Reed, can you fool Peyton Manning? He goes, darn right I can. Of course, he can fool me too. So you're right. Mutual respect would be the operative phrase.
On first down, this is Bernard Pierce straight ahead for a couple, and let's get another update from New York. James Brown and Bill Cowher.
Coach, his nickname is All Day.
There's 2 Comeback Player of the Year awards right now. One is going to be, you guys have right now, Adrian Peterson's the second one, 82 yards right here. Already 9 carries, 90 yards, 310 away from 2,000.
Work ethic is second to none. Greg and Dan.
Flacco, Buckeye! Flacco,
He is amazing, amazing, amazing. Bernard Pierce with room to run on the left side as a first down across the 45.
Well, and finally, we saw some energy on that first down play by the Ravens offensive line with a good surge, and here they go again. Michael Orr, a good block at the point of attack. A great block by Dennis Pitta as he pins DJ Williams back to the inside. And a little energy being shown here on those first couple plays offensively.
And some crowd appreciation for Baltimore's first down of the day. Pierce again. Running room up the middle. Inside the 40, we have a penalty marker on the near side of the field.
2 of them are down.
Holding, number 77 offense. 10-yard penalty, remains first down.
That's Matt Burke, the center.
Yeah, they're getting Matt Burke, the center. There's Matt Burke right on the right side of your screen. Well, you can see, there's the hold right there. You can see he grabbed DJ Williams. That was a good block at the beginning, but when Williams tried to separate and come off the block, Burke grabbed his jersey and held him to him, and that drew a pair of flags.
Baltimore's 872 penalty yards, second most in the National Football League.
And if you're a Ravens fan, how frustrating is this? Finally, this offense shows the first spark of any kind so far today, and bam, they go backwards.
From the shotgun, Flacco over the middle, and the fans want an interference call, and Torrey Smith, the intended receiver, being covered by Wesley Woodyard.
And covered very well. All right, there's Smith, number 82. We're going to the inside. Remember, that's inside 5 yards. Now, you can't have contact when the ball's in the air, even inside that 5-yard zone.
I believe there was.
It looked like there was some.
Rice looking for running room and doesn't find any. That stop was made by Elvis Dumerville.
Well, now this brings up the dreaded 3rd and very long, and 2 of the premier pass rushers in the game, and Elvis Dumerville and Von Miller are targeting number 5.
Denver's third down defense, the last 8 games or so, has been especially outstanding. Flacco running out of time and throws, and that is incomplete to Dennis Pitta.
And even if Pitta would have caught it, nothing would have happened. He was basically just back at the line of scrimmage. Joe Flacco, Von Miller is getting in on him. Again, Dennis Pitta should have caught that, but he wasn't going anywhere with that. I'm not sure he could have even kept himself from going out of bounds for no gain.
So Holiday back once again. Flacco 4 out of 11 throwing the football. and 0 for his last 5. That's a booming kick. We'll let it bounce, and the Ravens are going to cover this one inside the 5-yard line. Laquan Williams down there to down the ball at the 5. Back in Baltimore, 6:20 to play in the first half, and to say that Baltimore's offense has been anemic is being kind so far. Meanwhile, Manning from his own 5-yard line puts Decker in motion and gives to Moreno. And Moreno out across the 5, out close to the 10-yard line, to pick up a 5 on the play.
Well, that's a good first down play, but boy, they had to struggle for it. And again, this Denver offense, you hear people talk about Peyton Manning and how much it looks like Indianapolis, and what they tell you is, well, it looks like Indianapolis only with a better offensive line. And you see the comparison there between Manning and Flacco.
Manning, sideline, Decker pulls it in, out across the 20 to the 22-yard line, and a first down.
Man, Kerry Williams, the corner on that side, he's almost defenseless when the wide receiver comes this far back. Eric Decker comes a good 5 yards back to this football that Peyton Manning is throwing to a spot, and Decker is getting to that spot. That is, I know Peyton Manning doesn't have the strongest arm in the league, but the ball still goes where he wants it to go.
Decker 5 catches for 54 yards, back to Moreno on the ground, and Moreno fighting his way up to about the 28, maybe the 29. There's John Fox, 9 years the head coach in Carolina, now in his 2nd season with the Denver Broncos.
Last year, he's cobbling together an offense around Tim Tebow, and this year around Peyton Manning. What a reversal of 180 degrees.
Moreno with a first down to the 35.
Well, right now, it's the Denver offensive line. Tremendous job of working out of the shadow of your own end zone with some good old-fashioned power football coming off the ball. Dan Copen there in the middle, the longtime center for Tom Brady and the Patriots. After they lost J.D. Walton, man, did he just slide right in there and save their bacon.
Ronnie Hillman has replaced Moreno in the backfield. Manning going down, courtesy of Albert McClellan.
Well, again, Peyton Manning, after a good play-action fake, can't find anybody, and McClellan just powers right through Ronnie Hillman, the rookie back, and that's one of the reasons they don't want Hillman on the field down a passing situation, because he's undersized, and McClellan just drove right through him, and boy, did the Ravens need a big play, and Albert McClellan provided it.
Second sack of Manning today. On the draw, Hester hit at the 30, forward to about the 31. They're going to mark his forward progress at the 30-yard line. James Ahedibo, who has been very active and doing very well, filling in today for Bernard Pollard in the secondary.
And Bernard Pollard is such a big loss. He just fits so perfectly with his temperament, his tackling, his ability to provide the big hit, and he's a huge loss defensively for Baltimore.
3rd and 14. Terrell Suggs on the field. Manning quick pass, far side of the field. This is Demaryius Thomas, and he's wrapped up at about the 34.
Well, Peyton Manning loves that slip screen, bubble screen, call it what you will. He knows it's a great blitz beater, but it's pretty apparent that the Ravens practiced against this all week. Take a look at that. Peyton ends up going down, but you can see McPhee puts him on the ground, but that was just defended perfectly by the Ravens.
Well, as struggling as this Baltimore offense has been here in the first half, you really can't say enough about the Ravens defense. An injury-riddled defense. Jacoby Jones with a return chance here from his own 19. Trying to make something out of nothing, and doesn't get very much on it at all. They'll work from the 20 when we come back. 2:09 to play in the first half.
Well, it has been a miserable game so far. Ray Rice has a total of 6 yards. Joe Flacco fumbled the football, turned it over. That resulted in a Denver field goal. Trying to find Bolden, and Joe Flacco has had to pick himself up repeatedly from the Denver pressure. And this has to have been a frustrating first half to this point. 44 yards total offense for the Ravens.
Here's Rice with his 6th touch of the day. And that takes us to the 2-minute warning. 2 minutes to play here in Baltimore. The Ravens looking up with a 10-0 deficit. 2 minutes to go here in Baltimore in the first half. Flacco from the shotgun, going to throw it deep down this sideline. And the catch is made. Jacoby Jones pulled it in. Dan, during the break, I was just asking you, what's the longest pass Flacco's thrown today?
Well, they had a grand total of 19 yards passing. Does he get the ball? Yes, he does. He gets both feet in bounds, hits out of bounds with firm control of the football.
Ray Rice looking for running room. That was a 43-yard pickup. Meanwhile, Ray Rice came into this game with 993 rushing yards and has gone over the 1,000-yard mark for the 4th straight year.
Well, I doubt it's a cause of celebration right now for Rice, considering it's taken him 6 carries to amass a total of 12 yards.
2nd and 7.
It's a good accomplishment, but not right now.
Rice with his best carry of the day. Marked down at the 20-yard line.
Well, and you know what, Greg? He got some blocking. I mean, he's got a hole. Take a look at it here. Gets a good trap block by Ja Reed, and then just a nice crease right upfield, and that's one of the first slivers of daylight Ray Rice has seen all day. Bernard Pierce had a couple.
Flacco throwing near side, and that's Pitta, and Pitta is bounced out of bounds at about the 18-yard line. Run out by Danny Trevathan, rookie linebacker out of Kentucky.
And then the key to Trevathan's tackle there again is to get there quickly enough that you don't allow the big guy to turn upfield. Yeah, finally, we used that word spark. Finally, a little spark from the Ravens O.
Second down, that pass is complete. Corey Smith inside the 5. It'll be 1st and goal.
Anquan Bolden ran the deep end, and he cleared the defense. And the Bronco defense, they doubled Bolden and went downfield and left the hole underneath open.
Flacco throwing. Intercepted on the far side of the field. Chris Harris down the sideline. Flacco trying to catch him, and he won't get there. What a turnaround.
Joe Flacco sprinted his butt off to try to make this tackle, but he underthrows that ball to Anquan Bolden, doesn't see Chris Harris undercutting the route, and an unbelievable error by Joe Flacco, who now has 2 turnovers in this half that have resulted in 10 points for the Broncos.
That is the 2nd interception returned for a touchdown this season by Chris Harris. That one good for 98 yards, and the extra point is good. And Baltimore knocking on the door, looking to make it, hoping to make it a 10-7 game, now finds itself down 17-0. A reminder, coming up, the Verizon Halftime Report. JB, Dan Shannon, Boomer, Coach Bill Cowher will have the latest NFL scores and highlights. Looking out for the postseason, all coming up on the Verizon Halftime Report. It is a stunned, silent crowd
and I
here
think
in Baltimore.
It's a stunned Joe Flacco who's bleeding from his lower lip. But I think a lot more than his lip is bruised right now. There you get a good look at the blood. But geez, the first sign of life. He gets the long pass to Jacoby Jones, and wow, it ends up 7 the other way.
This is Jacoby Jones. Jones dancing and makes it back to the 20-yard line. Let's go back to that pick. And they were in a hurry to get this snap off with time running down.
You can see Joe Flacco looks the whole way. He never looks even down the middle of the field. He made up his mind. He was going to throw that pass to Anquan Boldin. And I'll tell you, I didn't know Joe Flacco was that fast. But that's little consolation and pretty meaningless. But he had made up his mind, and this will be greeted with massive booing.
Already started as time runs down here in the first half.
But Greg, you could take a look at that. He was looking at Bolden the whole way and telegraphed that throw.
At the end of the first half, Denver 17, Baltimore nothing. Back with the Verizon halftime report after this message and a word from your local station. This is the NFL on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 47. You're listening to a Pepsi anthem by Kid Rock. Download this and other NFL-inspired anthems at PepsiAnthems.com. Welcome back to Baltimore, where we're getting set to start the third quarter. Denver leading the Ravens 17-0. Greg Gumbel along with Dan Deerdorf. Let's go back to the final minute of the first half that the Baltimore Ravens and Joe Flacco wish they had a chance to do over again.
Well, they had a really good drive going. It was an up-tempo drive. Torrey Smith gets inside. You see there's 44 seconds left on the clock. Now, they did have all 3 timeouts remaining, but I like the fact that they were still pressing the issue. I think at that point in time, the timeout would have benefited the Denver defense more than the Ravens offense. Certainly, they were going to use a timeout right after this play, but the reality is it's all about the bad throw by Joe Flacco. I don't think that was a clock management issue. I like the fact they'd had some success for the first time that half by being up-tempo, forcing the issue with the Denver defense. It's just, it all boiled down to that horrendous throw and telegraphing of the throw by Joe Flacco.
Now, in an effort to try to make things right again, the good news for the Ravens is that they get the ball first here in the second half. They won the toss and deferred to start the game. Jacoby Jones is deep. And Jones will run this one back to about 6 yards deep. 25 up the sideline. And out of bounds at about the 45-yard line. Terrific return once again from Jacoby Jones. 51-yard return as we look at some first half numbers.
Well, take it, third down conversions, as you can see, not even a single one by the Ravens. The 2 takeaways by Denver resulting in 10 points. Again, a miserable first half by the Ravens offense until that last drive that ended the
And Ray Rice, who has not been given very much running room at all by this Denver defense today.
Well, so far in the first half, Greg, it looks like it's the Baltimore offense that is playing without a lot of its starters. Yes, they're missing Marshall Yanda, who's not in there at right guard. Bobby Williams, the veteran, taking his place. But still,
that quick pass is complete. Inside the 40 to the 39-yard line goes Tandon Doss.
And that's the kind of routes that I think we expected to see more often with Jim Caldwell. The intermediate stuff underneath working, not quite as vertical as they used to be with Cam Cameron.
And we're going to see Flacco and the Ravens go with a no-huddle here.
Well, it worked at the very end of the first half. This is the offense they started to run at the beginning of the year. Got away from it.
Rice. Running room to about the 31. Mike Adams coming up from the Broncos secondary to make the stop.
Ray Rice kicked that ball downfield. Frustrated over, took offense to something.
They'll mark it at the 32. It'll be 2nd and 3.
This is rarefied air for the Ravens. Second and this short.
Flacco with time and Rice out of the backfield inside the 30 and enough for a first down.
Well, in that time, Joe Flacco not under duress whatsoever. Good blocking up front. And you get Ray Rice with one-on-one, and, that's to your benefit.
And a good little character check for Joe Flacco here at the start of the second half.
You talk about having to have a short memory as a quarterback or a cornerback. He's got to be exercising that right now.
Rice again, and Rice tripped up before he could get started by Von Miller. You know, the interesting thing too, Dan, is we've talked all weekend long about Joe Flacco playing out his contract here in Baltimore.
And, questions remain within the organization as to whether Joe is the long-term answer. I don't believe it's been answered yet.
Flacco locked in this one for Allen out of the backfield. It's incomplete at the 10.
Well, Anthony Allen comes out of the backfield on a wheel route, running upfield, and he's got a step on Wesley Woodyard. And again, that's a good throw by Joe Flacco. I mean, that's the only place it could be in between Woodyard and Moore.
So now Flacco looking at a 3rd and 10 from the 27. Flacco lofting this one for Torrey Smith, and he's got it at the 5-yard line. The question is if he then bounds.
And Champ Bailey was the defensive back, and he can't believe it. He can't believe that Torrey Smith elevated and got that football. And it looked, oh boy, did he land out of bounds? 1 down. And he lands out of bounds, I think, before he gets that 2nd foot down.
Looks like he lands right on that sideline.
Where's his elbow come down? He lands out of bounds. That's an incomplete pass. It's a tremendous effort. His rear end lands first, and it appears to land right on the line.
So they're going to look at Torrey Smith while Pete Morelli goes under the hood for the challenge flag from John Fox. We're back in Baltimore.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. It's an incomplete pass. It's 4th down.
Let me correct what happened as we went to a timeout there. Another official came up and ruled this an incompletion and not a complete pass, and it was John Harbaugh who threw the challenge flag.
And then Torrey Smith hits his head. When he hits the ground, he tries to get up, and Torrey Smith, suffering the effects of slamming his head onto the turf, ends up going into the Ravens locker room. He struggled to get to his feet.
So now here's Justin Tucker from 45 yards out to try to get the Ravens on the board for the first time today. And that looks straight enough and long enough. 12-18 to play in the 3rd. The Ravens, first points of the day at 17-3. Well, kudos to the Baltimore Ravens for the way they came out of the locker room and started the second half. I imagine they may have heard a word or two from Coach John Harbaugh.
Well, if I was one of their offensive players, I wouldn't have needed a speech to tell me that I needed to get up off my keister and start playing football.
Trendon Holiday will get to return this one from about 3 or 4 yards deep in his own end zone. Lost the football! Rolling toward the sideline. Who covered it?
Nobody. The ball's out of bounds. And Denver's going to keep it. Oh, boy, did the Ravens have a golden opportunity. First of all, just the left hand pokes the ball out. McClellan, I think, knocked it out. And then no one is able to recover it in the field of play.
And the fans think that it was covered, but you can see the ball is loose and rolling out of bounds.
Great job, though, by Albert McClellan of knocking out the ball. And no, they're just very clearly not recovered in the field of play by anyone wearing a purple jersey.
A lot of wishful thinking here in the stadium in Baltimore. So now Manning from his own 17-yard line. This is Noshawn Moreno, who had 74 yards rushing in the first half and adds 4 more here. It'll be 2nd and 6.
And again, Peyton Manning relies so much on play action, and he's so good at it that they just keep handing off the ball, even if they're not having the success that they're having. And it's an added bonus that they're picking up yardage running the football. But his play action relies on Moreno getting a certain number of carries.
Deep drop for Manning this time, far side of the field, and wide open is Eric Decker. Knocked out of bounds just as he crossed the 35-yard line. That's enough for a first down. Kerry Williams covering on the far side.
And Eric Decker and Williams have been jawing at each other this whole game. Not exactly in the holiday spirit. And Ray Lewis, again, unfortunately, having to watch from the sidelines this game. It'll be interesting to see if he's back next week for their big game of the Giants, too.
Moreno straight ahead. And out to close to the 44-yard line before Ed Reed makes the stop. And we mentioned at the beginning of the day, these Broncos have secured the AFC West. They're chasing a first-round bye. A win today for the Ravens would give them the AFC North, as would a Pittsburgh loss. But if they lose, you can't help but blame the Ravens for looking over their shoulders at the Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Moreno.
Look at the leg drive by Moreno and the refusal to go down. This guy was, in the eyes of a lot of Denver fans, a bust.
Toast.
And it looked like his career was at an end in Denver. Willis McGahee was the guy. And look at this. Talk about a rebirth and a second chance at an NFL life. Noshawn Marino's in the midst of that right now.
He told us he was intent on being a professional throughout the entire experience.
And he was.
Manning. Double move on the far side, and the pass is complete to Decker for the touchdown. What a move Decker put on the far side of the field.
Well, Peyton Manning just one more time with the action in the backfield. Just that little stutter step by Decker, and Williams gives up on it. For some reason, Kerry Williams, he chose to pull up instead of trying to run with Eric Decker. And Ed Reed, I think he's demonstrating the frustration being felt on that Ravens sideline. Kerry Williams, for some reason, pulled up, and at that point in time, Manning threw a perfect pass. Again, another good look at the perfect strike to Eric Decker, and right now, it's Eric Decker who's talking to Kerry Williams.
.9:53 to play in the third, and Denver has jumped to a 24-3 lead on the Baltimore Ravens. Jacoby Jones deep in his own end zone. And we'll run this one out from about 8 yards deep. Running room on the far side. And out across the 20 to about the 21-yard line, brought down by Jim Leonard. Let's go back.
Well, Eric Decker is split out to the left. Here's Decker up here. Demaryius Thomas is down here, and watch the fact there's no safety in the middle back here for the Ravens. There is no deep safety help, and Ed Reed runs underneath, and for some reason, I'm not sure why, he undercuts it instead of playing deep middle, and he shows his frustration at the end because Kerry Williams was all alone.
Flacco overthrowing on the far side, and Quan Bolden, and here come the boos. It'll be 2nd and 10. Dan, on that play, it looked very much like Kerry Williams was surprised when that football went by him. On 2nd and 10, Flacco for Ray Rice. Wrapped up at the 20. He lost a yard on the play. DJ Williams.
Darn right. That's a heck of a tackle by DJ Williams. I'm not sure if Kerry Williams was expecting Ed Reed to be over the top, helping him on it. But he certainly gave up on it. He stopped running as hard as he could. And you're right, he seemed surprised by the delivery of the ball.
3rd and 11. Flacco hit by Von Miller.
Well, again, the two tackles now, Orr and Osemele, are going to be under tremendous pressure with Dumerville and Moore coming. Here comes Dumerville, and then right up the middle, before Dumerville can get there, is Von Miller. Runs a line stunt to the inside, loops around, comes right up the A-gap, and Joe Flacco is unable to deal with that.
Trendon Holiday at his own 34. Up the sideline, midfield, and into Baltimore territory, out of bounds at about the 40-yard line.
Well, there's Jim Caldwell, who was the quarterback coach, and this week, with the firing of Cam Cameron, elevated to offensive coordinator. Again, he's never called plays in the National Football League. I don't think that's that big a deal. Not when you've been around as long as Jim Caldwell has, and when you've been around offensive football as long as he has. And John Harbaugh made what he said was the hardest decision he ever had to make in letting Cam Cameron go. Remember, Cameron hired Harbaugh back at the University of Indiana in 1997 to be an assistant for him when he was head coach.
This is Moreno, and Moreno inside the 35 to the 34. We were talking about the playoff situation just a few moments ago. Denver already having clinched the AFC West. Baltimore can clinch the AFC North with a win or a Pittsburgh loss later today. But Dan, Baltimore has to be looking over their shoulders at Cincinnati Bengals and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And Denver would love to have a bye, but the problem is they lose the tiebreaker to both Houston and New England because they've been beaten by both of them already this season.
And up the seam, he's got his man, Joel Dreesen, and Dreesen inside the 10. It'll be 1st and goal.
Oh my, he's got Ed Reed all over him. How can you throw a bet? Again, play action to Moreno. Look at this throw by Peyton Manning over the top. And Ed Reed, who really has got, he's there. He throws it over the top of Bynes and puts it in a position where Dreesen, it's right on his hand.
1st and goal. Quick pass, incomplete.
Well, you saw the Baltimore blitz that time. Dean Pease comes with Ed Reed coming off the corner.
Boy, he sure looked like he was in the neutral zone early, didn't he?
I thought I was going to see a flag. I'm with you, Greg. Let's take a look at it. Watch Ed trying to time this. We can't see the snap of the ball there, but the line judge was looking right at it, and he didn't throw it. So obviously he didn't get into the neutral zone.
2nd and goal from the 6. Moreno, touchdown, Denver.
But Dean Pease trying to sell out with the Ravens defense. You got to take some chances, and look at everybody walking up, and when you have everyone up on the line and they get blocked, that's an easy score.
And we've talked about that comeback from Noshan Moreno. He goes over the 100-yard mark for the 2nd straight week.
You got a great block at the point of attack by Ramirez, Franklin, and Topin, and then Zane Beatles comes around on the power, and he cleans up.
Prater's kick is good, and now it's a runaway. 7:40 to play in the 3rd quarter. Noshan Moreno up over 100 yards, 31-3, Denver. You saw earlier how hard Torrey Smith's head hit the ground on the sideline. He went to a locker room. We have inquired, and we are told he's being tested for possible concussion. And that's as far as we know on Torrey Smith. Kobe Jones couldn't play that short hop, and so the Ravens will start from their own 20-yard line.
Let's go back and look at this. Watch the down blocks right here, and then here comes Beatles right up, and here's the key block right at the point of attack. And this is just really easy. Dreesen right there gets a block, and Noshawn Marino really runs through a wave of a hand tackle on his way into the end zone. Good old-fashioned power football. Torrey Smith, as you say, they could use Torrey Smith now with his deep threat.
Flacco on first down. Over the middle and behind Ray Rice, his intended receiver.
Here's what happened to Torrey Smith at the conclusion of making this sensational catch. Even though he landed out of bounds, watch his head right there. He's unable to keep his head, and he tries to get up and goes back down. And that's a bad sign. Stay down. Something's wrong.
Flacco gives to Rice. And Rice out to about the 23-yard line. And Torrey Smith has just walked back out onto the field.
And taking off his gloves. And that's a pretty good sign that can't say for sure, but he doesn't look like a guy who's coming back. And why take a chance? 31-3. You don't mess around with a possible concussion.
On 3rd and 6, Flacco, and that's batted down by Champ Bailey. Over the middle, intended for Anquan Bolden.
And again, how much of a chance was there for a completion there with that kind of coverage by Champ Bailey? And let's face it, Denver's going to sit on everything short and intermediate. With Torrey Smith not in the game, until they send Jacoby Jones deep a couple times, I think Denver's going to sit on everything in that 10-yard range.
Holiday deep. Sky high kick. Holiday. And cut down at the 21-yard line. Terrific special teams tackle by Laquan Williams. 6:54 to play in the third. Peyton Manning has thrown for 191 yards today. That has taken him over the 4,000-yard passing mark for the season, the 12th time that he has done that. He also owns the NFL record for 12 years with 10 or more wins in a season. This is Moreno, and a penalty marker flies at the tail end of the play.
Going to be holding against
Holding. Number 78 offense. 10-yard penalty, remains first down.
That's Ryan Clady, the guilty party, the left tackle, and on the Baltimore side of the field. Too many smiles.
Well, you have no idea that you work so hard all week. You put in the time during practice. You got nothing but positive feelings coming into the game, and then it just completely disintegrates out from under you. It's happened to everybody, but when it does happen, it hurts. It hurts a lot. The Ravens worked on the practice field this week just as hard as the Denver Broncos.
First and 20. This is Hester. And this game, Dan, was within a couple of yards of being a 10-7 Denver lead at halftime, and things turned on a dime with the interception.
Yes, they did. And there was the first decent drive that the Ravens had it all in the first half, and they had the Denver defense, quite frankly, back on their heels. And they were pressing the issue, and they were on their way into the end zone. Got inside the 5-yard line with the play by Torrey Smith, and then, wow. Blows up in their face.
2nd and 17, Manning with time, going to go deep, has Decker out in front, and a terrific dive by Kerry Williams, who didn't give up on that one and broke it up.
No, he didn't. And Eric Decker looks like he's there, and again, Kerry Williams, nicely played, no interference, doesn't even contact Eric Decker until afterwards. And I think Peyton, he might have wanted that ball just about a yard farther to the inside to let Decker keep moving to the middle of the field and away from Williams. It was underthrown, just a scoop.
3rd and 17. Hester. And that'll bring the punting unit onto the field.
Well, Jacoby Jones has been on the verge a couple times with some kickoff returns of some really big plays. He and the special teams of the Ravens have played pretty well. Let's see, maybe he can bust something here.
Jones will let this one bounce. And it'll take a Denver roll inside 35 and come to rest at about 32 and a half. To New York, JB and the coach, guys.
Coach, you've liked this young man at running back.
Yeah, after a Brandon Weeden interception, Alfred Morris, the rookie, 3 yards out. And the Redskins fighting for a playoff spot, up 17-14 over Cleveland.
And Cleveland continues to play hard, as we know. Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf.
All right, guys, thank you. And the Redskins doing that without Robert Griffin III. Flacco. And Flacco complete to the 40-yard line, and diving forward is Dennis Pitta. He'll be about 2 yards short of a first down.
This is where the Baltimore offense, they owe something to their defense to possess the ball. All right, what are the odds of winning this game? They're probably pretty darn small. But you owe it to the guys, your teammates. Get some first downs. Convert some third downs. They haven't converted a third down this game yet.
That one is complete, and that is a first down across midfield to the 45-yard line of the Denver Broncos. Tandon Doss.
At the very end of this play, as Doss goes down, Wesley Woodyard grabs him by the face mask, not once, but twice. And no flag was thrown.
Which means the official missed it twice. Flacco under pressure, going to go deep and overthrows. Anquan Bolden covered by Tony Carter.
And that's not Anquan Bolden's specialty. Flying down the sidelines on the deep pattern. He's a possession guy inside, a very physical receiver. But again, the absence of Torrey Smith, you're going to have to compensate with other people running the patterns that would have gone to Smith.
Flacco sets up the screen, and Rice couldn't handle it. Falls incomplete. These Ravens are staring right at a 3-game losing streak. Well, the last time that happened was in October of the 2009 season.
Well, let's be realistic. The finishing stretch for the Ravens is nothing short of brutal. When you got to finish the season, Pittsburgh at home, then going to Washington, then Denver, then the Giants, and then finishing at Cincinnati.
Flacco, that's complete to Pitta, and Pitta to the 35, and appears to have enough for the first down.
Yeah, I think he got it. And again, Joe Flacco, this time that is a perfect pass to Dennis Pitta, working the underneath on a crossing pattern. And let's be realistic, the Broncos are sitting back in a shell. They're probably going to make it easy to complete some underneath passes.
Flacco, and Bolden says he was held, and here comes the flag. Covered by Tony Carter.
Pass interference, number 32, the offense. Defense, automatic first down.
Well, Tony Carter, he's finding something out that most DBs in this league don't. There it is, right in the middle of your screen. Anquan Bolden is such a physical presence, and even being interfered with, he did knock Bolden off his pattern.
Quick pass. There's Bolden, and we get a flag in the backfield.
And again, Bolden gets up. He's right in the face of Wesley Woodyard.
Penalty remains first down.
So it is a holding call against the Ravens. And once again, some momentum gets blunted by a penalty.
Couldn't hear Pete Morelli and who he called for the hold. But again, Bobby Williams, I guess, gets it, the right guard, filling in for Marshall Yanda.
So 1st and 20. incomplete to Jacoby Jones.
And Jones is hurt. Now Jacoby Jones is injured. I'm telling you what, this is just going from bad to worse for the Ravens.
John Harbaugh feels like he's running a MASH unit.
He is. This is as banged up and injured. I mean, coming into the game, they were in terrible shape, especially defensively. And now there goes Jacoby Jones. Torrey Smith is already out of this game. Bernard Pierce is out of this game.
David Reed has come in to replace him, number 16. He's the one with the clean uniform on the far side of the field. Flacco throwing, and he's got a man, and that's complete. And that's number 16, Reed.
Well, he goes right to him right away, and that's Reed's first catch of the season, as he's not been involved on the offensive side of things from scrimmage. Remember, he had the torn ACL, and he's making his way back, so David Reed gets in it late here.
3rd and 4. Flacco throws, and that's incomplete at the 20, intended for Pitta.
Well, Jack Del Rio is the new defensive coordinator of the Denver Broncos. 9 years, the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We kind of had a laugh. Champ Bailey said, you know, on game day, Jack thinks he's still playing. You know, Jack was a heck of a linebacker in the NFL for a long time, and he admits it. He gets fired up on game day.
4th and 4, Jacoby Jones is back on the field. Flacco throwing. Rice has it batted down at the 20-yard line by Wesley Woodyard.
Well, Woodyard in on everything. I'm telling you, what an active series that was for the linebacker from Kansas. Again, Joe on the move on 4th down. He's got to throw the football. He's got to make something happen, and treated rather rudely at the end of that as he gets shoved pretty hard.
Here's the horrible story on the Baltimore offense today. 7 punts, 1 fumble, once the ball went over on downs, 1 interception and a field goal.
And 1 of 11. 1 out of 11 on 3rd down.
Go down. Get your stick. Hey.
And that has brought the crowd rising to its feet and heading for the exit. Manning will double move by Decker again. And this one is broken up at midfield.
And Ed Reed was there to break it up, and Ed Reed hasn't gotten up yet.
Decker dipped to the outside and then went back in.
And a good job by Graham. He's the one who actually got a hand on the ball. But Ed Reed was there. Ed was going to guarantee that that pass wasn't completed either.
Right.
On 2nd and 10, this is Moreno looking to build on his 100 yard day. And still fights his way to about the 28-yard line. Thought your fantasy season was over. It's not. NFL playoff challenge is back and better than ever. You could win a trip to Super Bowl 48 in 2014. Play today at NFL.com/fantasy.
Well, the Denver running backs better realize that Baltimore is in the full strip mode now. They are ripping and clawing at that football, desperately trying to create a turnover.
Moreno gets a breather on the sideline. Hester comes into the backfield. Manning to throw. Lots of time and over the middle and in and out of the hands of Decker coming across the middle.
Well, Peyton Manning ended up on the ground, but he had a long time to survey the field and make this throw. He's able to step all the way up. Bynes doesn't get there until late, but look at the amount of time. He's looking, he steps all the way up, and Bynes' rush up the middle comes way late. He delivers a pass that Eric Decker's, he's got to catch that. Decker has been a little inconsistent at times, and that's an illustration of it right there.
Tandon Doss back at his own 25. Doss right up the middle of the field. Breaking free, 1 man to beat. And he's tackled at the 36-yard line. Matt Prater. Was it Prater? I'm sorry, Britton Colquitt. Britton Colquitt, the punter. saved the touchdown.
Oh, that's a heck of an open field tackle by Colquitt. Because this is going to the distance. This is going to the house. Tandon Doss runs through some tackles. And again, Britton Colquitt, the punter, that's a nice form tackle. And he was able to get onto that left ankle and hold on for dear life. If Tandon Doss was able to get by Colquitt, he was gone.
Every once in a while, kickers have to do that, don't they?
Yeah, they're wearing shoulder pads and a helmet too.
48 seconds to play here in the third quarter. This is Rice. Rice today, that is his 12th carry. He has also caught 3 passes.
And it's been tough sledding. It has been tough sledding trying to run the football for Baltimore here today. See Ray Rice averaging just a shade over 3 yards a carry. The Baltimore offensive line has struggled to create the open.
Deep drop, Flacco under pressure, shakes it and throws to the far side, and that is complete to Pitta. And that looks like that'll take us to the end of the third quarter.
Well, Flacco did a good job getting away from Robert Ayers and buying a little extra time.
And they will not get another playoff as we come to the end of the third with the score. Denver 31, Baltimore 3. Back to Baltimore after this message and a word from your local station. You're watching the NFL on CBS, the home of Super Bowl 47. Consecutive losses here at home don't happen very often for the Baltimore Ravens. 39 games since that last happened.
5 years ago.
Flacco on 3rd and 5, and he throws out here, and that's incomplete, intended for Rice, covered by that man, Wesley Woodard.
In the passer, number 30, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
David Bruton guilty of the penalty. And so that'll give the Ravens a first down, along with our producer Mark Wolf and our director Bob Fishman, Greg Gumbel, Dan Deerdorf, here in Baltimore. And there's the hand to the head and the penalty on Bruton.
Yeah, the key is it's got to be a forceful blow, and I think you can see that the right hand of Bruton, it caused Joe Flacco's head to snap back a little bit. I know it's getting harder and harder to play defense, but that's something that just will not carry. That won't fly.
From the 16-yard line, Flacco running left, running for his life, and threw it away with his left hand. Von Miller giving chase.
And I tell you, Joe Flacco surprises you. Now he's got to get it back to the line of scrimmage.
And that marker is down inside the 10.
But I thought he did with that left-handed throw. I don't think that's the issue.
There's no foul for intentional grounding as the quarterback got the ball beyond the line of scrimmage. However, after the play, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, late hit, number 81 in the offense. 15-yard penalty and the down will count. Second down.
All right, so this happens away from the quarterback, and here is Anquan Bolden. He comes back and just lowers it on Chris Harris.
Totally unnecessary.
And there's the official who throws the flag. The NFL has really cracked down on hits away from the ball, especially if you're coming back towards your own end zone. They're calling that guy a defenseless player.
So it gives Flacco and the Ravens a 2nd and 25. And Flacco right up the middle. Oh, what a catch inside the 5 by Pitta and into the end zone. Was he touched?
I didn't think he was.
They're checking at the goal line as to whether he was touched or not. Touchdown.
Well, a tremendous throw by Joe Flacco on the seam pattern, and Dennis Pitta goes up. And I don't know, you can make the argument that Mike Adams, he might have been down
on the back at about the 3.
He might be down by contact. Oh, he swipes at him, but I'm not sure he touched him.
We will review the previous play.
It's automatically because it was ruled a touchdown. On that last one, I'm not sure if we could discern that Mike Adams actually touches it.
Whichever way it goes, heck of a catch by Dennis Pitta. We're taking a look to see if we can find out if Dennis Pitta was down by contact on this play.
We've got a good look, and it looks like Mike Adams' leg and Pitta's arm come in contact, which would make him down.
After reviewing the play, the ruling on the field stands. It's a touchdown.
Because it was ruled a touchdown, he had to see something conclusive. Now, you take a look. Watch the right leg here of Adams and the left arm of Pitta. It sure looks to me like they're touching right there, which would have made Pitta down by contact at the 1 yard line. But Pete Morelli obviously thought that wasn't conclusive.
Well, with 14:31 to play, the Ravens get their first touchdown of the day. Joe Flacco to Dennis Pitta. And Pete Morelli saw no reason to overturn that call.
Well, again, it's one man's opinion. And again, looking at it again in super slow-mo, it looked to us that right there as he was going across. No question that Adams tried to hit him with his hand and swung and missed. But it looked like there was contact between the left arm of Pitta and the right leg of Adams right there.
And Pete Morelli is looking at the same thing we are, by the way. Let's get you back to New York once again, JB and Phil Cowler, guys.
No quit in the Colts.
Yeah, here we go. Andrew Luck hitting Dwayne Allen 8 yards out in the third quarter. We're in the fourth quarter down by 6, and they've already, the last 2 weeks, have had big fourth quarter comebacks. Can they do it again?
We'll find out. Back to Greg and Dan.
Oh, that doesn't come as any surprise to anybody this late in the season. No quit in Andrew Luck.
No. Well, here comes the hands team for Denver as they're anticipating the onside kick from Baltimore.
A Houston win will clinch for them the AFC South Championship. Let's see what kind of a kick we get from Justin Tucker. Deep. And it will sail into and out of the end zone for the touchback. Coming up next, playoff push in full focus. The Pittsburgh Steelers in Dallas to take on the Cowboys. What do you think the fate of the loser of that game, Dan?
Well, the loser of that game is going to end up with 7 losses, and that always makes it tough to make the playoffs.
And the Chiefs challenge the Raiders. Check your local listings for the game in your area. Manning and the Broncos. First down, their own 20. 14 and a half minutes to play here in the fourth quarter. And they'll start it on the ground with Moreno. Waits for his block and then cuts it for about 3 yards. That AFC playoff picture again. Baltimore on the short end of the score here, but should Dallas beat Pittsburgh, Baltimore will still claim the AFC North.
But again, Baltimore is looking for some momentum. It's all about playing good football in December and January, and a 3-game skid isn't the way to do it. Now, if they can get Denver to get a 3 and out, and if Baltimore can get another touchdown, all of a sudden 31-17 with the amount of time left, it gets interesting.
That Pittsburgh loss would give the Ravens a playoff spot, not necessarily and not yet the division championship.
Well, I think we've learned over the years that getting in the tournament is all that matters. You know, it used to be if you were the 6th seed, you're going, well, you don't have much of a chance. Well, we've been watching 6 seeds win Super Bowls. So getting in that's what counts.
3rd and 2. Play clock winding down. Coleman trying to turn the corner. Has the first down. Out across the 30-yard line.
Well, Noshawn Moreno stepped up and got it done when it was his turn. This was his first effort against Kansas City, against Tampa Bay. And again, he has been a steady, calming influence. And today he's carried the ball 21 times. He's got 115 yards and that touchdown. And Knowshon Moreno has given the Broncos everything they asked for when his turn came. And there's a good look. His tough yards today right up the middle.
Right where the injuries have hurt that defense the most for the Ravens. For a couple to the 33. And the clock continues to move as we come up on 12 minutes to play here in the fourth.
And Ronnie Hillman is a rookie, their second-round draft choice. And, you know, they're showing a little confidence in him, letting him, third-round draft choice, rather, but giving him a look here and giving him the football. And, again, I think that's a pretty good demonstration of confidence from John Fox and Mike McCoy, the offensive coordinator, letting him get some snaps.
147 rushing yards on the board today for the Denver Broncos. 2nd and 7. Hillman again. Hillman with a burst for a first down across the 40 to about the 42.
And you know what's really frustrating for the Ravens right now is that they're playing the run the whole way. They're daring Peyton Manning to throw the football. And when you put yourself in a run defense and you got somebody in every gap, and then you get manhandled like that, there's a level of frustration there.
You know, Dan, it feels strange to say the Denver Broncos have 31 points on the board, but this Baltimore defense has played very well today.
Well,
under the conditions that they've had to deal with.
They've played hard, but they are shorthanded. In a gross understatement, they're shorthanded.
Hillman slides down.
Yeah, that was pretty much a give up there by Ronnie Hillman. That was not exactly taking on a potential tackler and exploding through him to finish your run.
The NFL's youngest player, 21 years, 3 months, and 2 days old.
He's not a big guy, 5'10", 190 pounds, but he is capable of the explosive play. If he gets a step on somebody, he's gone.
Hillman again on 2nd and 7. And across midfield and just nosing into Baltimore territory as you take a look. They're working on Knowshon Moreno on the far sideline.
They're up underneath his jersey, trying to stretch him out. Well, that's pretty much of the look of a guy who went, I think I'm all right.
And the look of a guy who wants to play some more. 3rd and 2.
Well, when you think your career's over, you want to savor it when you're in there.
Hillman gets the first down.
And again, Denver, they might as well flash a neon light and sign that says we're running the ball. Can you stop us? And right now the answer from the Ravens is no, we can't.
And you see Ronnie Hillman's value and what he brings to the table. Look at that.
Nice jump cut there. A beautiful jump cut to the right and back up. But he had a crease. After the jump cut, the key was he had a crease because the Denver offensive line got some movement. They covered up the Ravens, and the Ravens aren't getting off blocks right now. Take a look at this. No pass. 8 rushing attempts on this drive.
This is Jacob Hester. And Hester net hard at about the 48-yard line. I want to remind you, coming up time permitting after the game, the NFL Today update presented by Farmers Insurance. JB, Dan, Shannon, Boomer, Coach Bill Cowher will have the latest NFL scores and highlights.
I'm telling you, what a day of football this is, huh? I mean, the number of quality matchups taking place around the National Football League today. This is a sight to see. This is just, if you love football, you got to love today. Guess what, Baltimore? Might be a run.
Hester, 45.
You see right there that Hester almost lost the football. He took that handoff from Manning, and there was a temporary juggle.
Well, you saw Joe Flacco there. Joe Flacco has completed less than half of his pass attempts today.
17 to 36. 10 rushes, no passes on this drive. You got to assume Manning's going to air it out now.
Here come the Ravens. Manning throwing, sideline, Decker, complete, first down. Ref out of bounds with a flag.
Yeah, Kerry Williams looks like he stumbled trying to come back in to make the play, and then well out of bounds. He finishes off the tackle when he's a couple yards out.
There's a catch on the play, and after the play was over, personal foul, unnecessary roughness, late hit, throwing a player out of bounds, 15-yard penalty, automatic first down.
Again, it's Eric Decker and Williams. They've been going at it all day. You see Williams loses his footing. Decker makes the catch. There's the finish as he throws him to the ground. While it's not the end of the world, you know in a situation like that it's going to draw the flag. And this new era of player safety. And it has been a frustrating day for Kerry Williams. And he and Decker they've had bad blood all day today. So when Peyton goes to the air for the only time on that drive, he converts for a first down. That's called passing efficiency.
And Manning taking time off of the clock.
Well, this drive is a demonstration of what really good football teams can do.
He takes this all the way down to the 5-second mark on the play clock, and then Hillman finds a hole to the 12. We had a look at the AFC. Let's check out the NFC playoff picture as things stand now. And New York Giants getting it handed to them by the Atlanta Falcons. 34-0. The Falcons lead the Giants.
Green Bay is winning their game over the Bears. The 49ers will play later this weekend. What a game they've got with New England.
How many had Seattle in the playoff hunt at the start of this season?
The replacement refs.
Point taken. 2nd and 5. This is Hillman. Going nowhere this time. Wrapped up at about the 14-yard line. Arthur Jones making the stop. Well, the first order of business for John Harbaugh and the Baltimore Ravens is try to get healthy.
Well, try to get healthy. The big question, will Ray Lewis be able to come back next week? Can Bernard Pollard maybe come back next week? I think Ellerbe will be ready to go by next week. They need Jameel McClain to come back. And if they can get these guys back healthy and resurrect this offense somehow, don't throw dirt on the Ravens yet. That would be premature.
And now to bring out the field goal unit. You know, and everybody is going to look at this game as to whether or not it's a verdict on whether the move from Cam Cameron to Jim Caldwell was the right one.
Well, you're not going to make that determination in the course of one game. It's going to take longer than that. As we look at Torrey Smith, and there's a real issue for this offense. How much is, if any, time he's going to miss? Hopefully it won't be at all. But this is an offensive football team that's got to come out of this game with zero confidence.
Prater from 36 yards out is right down the middle. 3 more on the board for the Broncos. It's 34-10. A near empty stadium as you see it from above. Aerial coverage of today's game provided by MetLife. Boy, the Denver Broncos just put on a clinic as to how you do it. They just engineered a 9-minute and 59-second drive.
When Baltimore knew they were going to do nothing but run.
That's not going anywhere. Gino Gradkowski, and Gino Gradkowski, no, who's bringing it back? It's number 38, Omar Brown. penalty marker is down at the 44.
There's the ball. There's the ball
looked
on
like
the ground.
He was down. At first glance, it looked like he was down by contact. Let's see what Pete Morelli says.
Illegal substitution. During the kick, substitutes entered the field. A 5-yard penalty be enforced from the spot of the foul. First down.
During the kick, someone entered the field. That's a late arrival.
A smiling Peyton Manning on the sideline, 4:21. All that stands in the way of the Broncos. And there's Dennis Pitta breaking free up the sideline. Pitta to the 10, the 5, the touchdown.
Well, that's one of the best efforts of the year by Dennis Pitta. And that's one of the best efforts of the year that I've seen. That is a tremendous display of individual effort, breaking tackle after tackle. And first of all, nice job staying in bounds. There's the first missed tackle, second missed tackle, and look at Pitta refusing to go down. There's the third missed tackle, and he stays in bounds and gives Baltimore a touchdown. What a superb individual effort by Dennis Pitta.
6th touchdown catch of the season.
And what kind of a day is he having? 7 for a buck and a quarter and a couple touchdowns. 31-yarder and a 61-yarder. A lone bright spot here for the Ravens offensively.
The extra point is good, 4:08 to play. And Denver's lead is now 34-17, an outstanding play by the Baltimore tight end. 4 minutes, 8 seconds to play here in the fourth quarter. Joe Flacco with his 100th career touchdown, although all the credit on that one goes to Dennis Pitta.
Well, Dennis Pitta, again, one of the lone bright spots for the Ravens offensively here today.
Onside kick and grabbed by Matthew Willis, a wide receiver for the Denver Broncos.
Well, right now, Peyton Manning and Mike McCoy are figuring out what running play we're going to run. And everyone in the Ravens defensive huddle better figure that out. You know, Peyton Manning would run a play-action pass on this first play.
Yes, he would.
I have the feeling that whomever would be running the pattern is going to be wide open.
Lonnie Hillman is in the backfield.
20.
And Hillman will get the handoff for not much. And
the Ravens are going to burn a timeout.
that'll be their second one here in the second half. They lost one to a challenge. A reminder for you, nobody knows the game like a quarterback. Break down all the NFL action on NFL Monday QB tomorrow at 6:30 Eastern, only on CBS Sports Network, the 24-hour home of CBS Sports.
Well, Peyton Manning, it is some story that's in the midst of being written. Didn't play at all last year, 4 surgeries on his neck. What he has done for the Broncos franchise and for the Ravens, it's going to be a continued MASH report about their attempt to get healthy.
This is Hillman, and not much there for Hillman, but the clock continues to move. And a whistle stops the clock, and there is
who dat?
John Elway.
John Elway has to be in the running for Executive of the Year in the National Football League. He won the Peyton Manning sweepstakes by convincing Peyton to come to Denver when he had multiple suitors. And, it's interesting. We got two franchises here that are both being run by Hall of Fame football players. Ozzie Newsome has been doing it for a long time here in Baltimore and doing a superior job of it. But two of the best players ever to play this game are the guys making the personnel decisions for both of these franchises.
And Pete Morelli confirming something with the Baltimore sideline.
Baltimore does not have any timeouts remaining.
And there is the great Ozzie Newsome. One of the best tight ends ever to walk on a football field. And I'm telling you what, the job that he has done here with this Ravens franchise.
I was going to say a really good executive in his own right, too.
Oh, well, John Elway could only hope to be as good at his job as Ozzie Newsome has been at his.
Hurry, hurry, check!
This is Hillman. Hillman brought down at the 45-yard line, and Baltimore cannot stop the clock anymore. As the Broncos are looking to beat the Ravens for the first time ever here in Baltimore.
Well, Greg, you and I have been coming to M&T Bank Stadium for years. This is one of the great home field advantages, not just in the NFL, but in all of professional sports. Coming here and winning a football game, even against a depleted Ravens team, is something that's a pelt you hang on the wall.
And let's see.
Down.
Well, they didn't care about letting the play clock run down. They'll take the 5-yard penalty. It gives Colquitt more room to punt.
The great Ed Reed.
I think he's trying to actually talk to the official about Kerry Williams and the penalty he got on the sideline about when he threw Eric Decker out of bounds. Looked like Ed was pleading his case. That's what a leader does. He's got the back of his team.
And we get a false start, or no, we get a. Let's see.
I
might have been an encroachment.
False start, number 12. Kicking team, 5-yard penalty remains, 4th down.
So that is on Matthew Willis.
The
Ed Reed,
great one.
8 Pro Bowls, 61 career interceptions, and 14 touchdowns. 14 touchdowns for a safety.
And a place in Canton, Ohio.
This is Jones. No place to go. Matthew Willis, that last penalty was on him. He goes down and makes the special teams tackle. Once again, the AFC playoff picture. Denver will move to 11-3. Baltimore will drop to 9-5.
And you can see that Houston, New England, and Denver are already in the tournament. Baltimore has a chance later this afternoon if Pittsburgh loses. That is correct?
Yep.
Mr. Gumble. So Baltimore could go in before this day is over. And Von Miller got a running head start.
Offside, number 58. Defense, 5-yard penalty remains, 1st down.
Von Miller closest to us. Dumerville went on the other side, but he was about a step behind Von Miller, who's stuck on that 16 sack mark.
So Flacco throws to the near side, and that's complete to Jacoby Jones. And the clock is at 2:50 and running.
And again, Baltimore has no timeouts remaining, so they'll try to do this with some alacrity.
Flacco going down back at the 10-yard line. That is Derek Wolfe.
Derek Wolfe, their second-round draft pick from Cincinnati who started every game this year, and he got in there just by hustle. Joe Flacco had nowhere to go. Here's Anquan Bolden. He's going against a soft zone, and Joe Flacco just couldn't find an opening.
On 3rd and 13, the pass to the far side to David Reed, and Champ Bailey runs him out of bounds with 2:08 to play.
Well, it's going to be a nice flight back to Denver for these Denver Broncos. That, boy, talk about going on a winning streak. Keep in mind, this football team had a pretty tough schedule to start with, and they were 2-3. And they haven't lost a game since that point.
That 4th down pass falls incomplete, and the ball will go over on downs to the Broncos. You saw Jack Del Rio. Remember, Jack Del Rio coached Baltimore linebackers from 99 to, I believe it was 01.
Well, a lot of outstanding coaches were on the defensive staff here in the Ravens since they came into existence.
There's Jack.
It's a long and illustrious list.
And Brock Osweiler has come in at quarterback.
The large one. No, that's not a misprint. He is 6 feet 8 inches tall.
240 pounds. The 2nd round draft pick out of Arizona State.
180!
And that will bring us to the 2-minute warning at 1:59 to play. 1:59 on the clock. Peyton Manning. Yeah, he's got some admirers even in Baltimore. Boy, if you want to talk about the long and short of it, look at Brock Osweiler towering above his teammates.
He's got to have some serious knee bend to get down there and take a snap from center.
Meanwhile, Peyton Manning, 17 for 28, 204 yards, a touchdown, went over the 4,000-yard mark for his NFL record 12th time.
Well, again, that's 200, a little over 200 yards passing is not exactly the kind of days that Peyton Manning is used to, but he was content to run the football today. Denver ran the ball 44 times and only passed it 30 times. In this pass-happy National Football League, you don't often see that much of an overload to the running game.
And as it isn't strange enough for the Ravens to lose a home game, they lose a home game for the 2nd straight time.
Well, Baltimore is going to get a chance to get out there and run a few plays.
Another divisional champion to crown. The Green Bay Packers, with a win over the Bears this afternoon, have claimed the NFC North. And we get a timeout called by John Fox on the far side.
John Fox
Officials were trying to pull him off the field.
He was about 3 yards out onto the field to play. Yeah, they weren't going to do a full kneel down. It looks like they're going to try a field goal. Or are they just going to go ahead and...
I was going to say, that's pressing it, isn't it? With 38 seconds to play and a 17-point lead.
Well, it just... Either that or they're going to punt it.
Nope, they're going to do it. Here comes Matt Prater.
I mean, you don't take a knee on 4th and 14. Obviously you could, but that seems a little unorthodox. Kickers need to work too. I don't think this is an in-your-face move. If I was the Ravens, I wouldn't take this personally. This is just the way you got to finish off a drive.
45 yards out. That kick is pulled to the left and no good.
Well, Matt Prater, he's going to not be happy about that miss. It's nice to get the win, but that's your last memory of being out on the field. And Denver gets to go home and stay home for the holidays against the Cleveland Browns and the Kansas City Chiefs.
And they are 11-3 in a 9-game winning streak.
Right. And not exactly playing a couple powerhouses.
And Flacco going down. Robert Ayers from behind. And let's see if that's the last snap of the day.
Yeah. And Baltimore's remaining schedule is anything but what the Broncos have, as they have to host the New York Giants next Sunday, and then they have to go to Cincinnati.
And it won't be a very happy New York Giants team. And Flacco down again to end the game. And there's Elvis Dumervil.
Elvis Dumervil gets around Michael Orr, and that was an ugly finish and an unfortunate finish for John Harbaugh's Baltimore Ravens. Again, we said it early. It has been a long time since I've seen a team that was missing as much defensive talent as the Ravens were today. 4 of their 5 leading tacklers weren't even suited up to play, and then they had injuries during the game as well. So
the Ravens lose their 3rd straight. The Broncos win their 9th in a row.